I'm Beverly, counsellor, lecturer, woman with green glasses and a head full of questions. This is The Signal Isn't Very Clear, a podcast about how we live, feel and make sense of a world full of contradictions. If you've ever felt overwhelmed, unheard or just confused by it all, you're in the right place. Some people feel the static more than others. The effects of disinformation, mistrust and overwhelming information aren't spread evenly. They land harder and more often on those already facing barriers in other parts of life. Marginalized communities carry a disproportionate weight. Ethnic minorities, LGBTQ+ people, lower income households, disabled people, all are more exposed to the harmful consequences of this fragmented information landscape. A 2023 UK study published in Social Science and Medicine showed how misinformation often deliberately targets these groups. It isn't accidental, it's strategic. It aims to isolate, to stigmatize, to divide. Take the LGBTQ+ community. Target disinformation fuels prejudice. It reinforces harmful myths, stokes moral panic, and contributes to a climate where people feel less safe than just being themselves. Ethnic minorities face similar dynamics. Disinformation campaigns often echo and amplify systemic racism. They twist narratives, scapegoat communities, and deepen distrust in institutions that were never fully trusted to begin with. And there's the question of age. Younger people, especially those under 35, often have stronger digital skills. They know how to navigate platforms, but that also means they're constantly in the stream, exposed to relentless flows of information, much of it misleading, polarizing, or emotionally loaded. The Office for National Statistics reports higher levels of anxiety among young adults, directly linked to social media use and the wider political atmosphere it helps create. Older adults, on the other hand, often face different challenges. Digital literacy isn't always strong. Platforms like WhatsApp and Facebook can become breeding ground for falsehoods. And with fewer tools to critically assess online content, the risk of being misled grows. Socioeconomic factors add another layer. People from lower income backgrounds may have limited access to quality education or reliable information sources. That doesn't mean they're less intelligent, but it can mean fewer opportunities to develop critical evaluation skills. And when life is already hard, it's even harder to find the time or the energy to sift through a storm of conflicting messages. This all adds up to a cycle. Less access to trustworthy information leads to poorer outcomes in health, education, employment, civic life. And those outcomes then reinforce the same vulnerabilities that made the information stick in the first place. And let's not forget mental health. For people already struggling with anxiety, depression, and other conditions, the sheer volume and tone of information out there can be overwhelming. Cognitive load increases, decision-making becomes harder, doubt creeps in even once there was clarity. Research from UK-based mental health journals draws a clear link. Exposure to disinformation makes existing symptoms worse, especially when people are isolated or already feeling vulnerable. But of course, none of these categories exist in isolation. A young queer person from an ethnic minority background living in poverty may be navigating multiple layers of exclusion, socially, psychologically, and informationally. This is where the idea of intersectionality becomes crucial. Those overlapping identities don't just add challenges, they multiply them. At the same time, it's important not to slide into paternalism. Just because someone's affected doesn't mean they're powerless. In fact, many marginalized groups have developed powerful strategies to resist misinformation, to build community knowledge, to support one another, to push back against exclusion. The point isn't to cast people as victims. It is to recognize disparity so that support can be better targeted and justice better served. So, what actually helps? Targeted digital literacy programs, for one, ones that take cultural context into account, mental health services that understand the specific pressures faced by different communities, public communication that isn't just broadcast but reciprocal, that actually listens. Many researchers return to the need for civic literacy, not just as a toolkit for individuals, but as a shared foundation for democratic life. Because when people are equipped to question, to verify, to think critically, the ground under their feet becomes a little more solid. And in that end, this isn't just about them, it's about all of us. Because when some people are more vulnerable to disinformation, we all become more exposed to its consequences. The weaker the link, the more fragile the chain.